Yes, this is the ultimate list. Let's rank every single villain in the MCU. If you want to win this in-game Iron Man glow-in-the-dark Funko Pop, all you gotta do is like this video, subscribe, and comment who is your favorite character in the MCU. On to the video. Listen, buckle up. Grab a drink, grab a snack, get ready. This is a long one, but hopefully a fun one. This is my ultimate ranking of all 101 villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, all of them. If they showed up as an antagonist, and they weren't a faceless robot or alien army, they're on here. Probably. I may have forgotten one or two, but I think I got most of them. So, this is my extensive dissertation on the villainy in the MCU. And just a reminder, this is my list that I developed with my brain. And it was really tough. This took me a long time to make, and I've changed it so many times over the past few months. Every time I finalize the list and I'm ready to record, Marvel releases a new project and I have to add more. God, so much content! So, on a different day, this list might look slightly different, but this is what I've come up with. I put time codes in the description in case you just want to skip through and see the top 20, top 10, top 5, etc. Alright, here we go. Number 101, Statue Guards. I mean, I don't even know what their names are. These guys literally stand around and do nothing. Strange and Wong easily dispatched them. 100, Crow. I actually forgot to put this guy on the list for the longest time. I genuinely forgot he existed. He was that forgettable. Vapid, ugly, useless piece of trash. 99, Namja. She's only in 3 episodes of Ms. Marvel. Her story didn't get enough time to develop, it isn't compelling, her ending sucks, her writing sucks, I didn't believe in her cause, and she was utter shit. 98, Trevor Slattery. For the first half of Iron Man 3, he is actually quite great as a modern day take on the Mandarin. But once it's revealed that he's just a bumbling drunk actor named Trevor, he lost all credibility. He's a literal joke, he was never even really a villain, and he is one of the most offensive characters that Marvel Studios has ever presented to us. Go die, Trevor. Go die. 97, Malekith. He is hands down one of the worst villains in any comic book movie ever. I can't even remember one line that he says, and he is the definition of a boring, gray, ugly piece of shit. Malekith is the pinnacle of garbage villains. 96, Taskmaster. She was shit. Absolute shit. 95, The Dweller in Darkness. It's a faceless dragon bat monster thing that is frankly one of the worst parts of Shang-Chi. Unnecessary and unengaging. 94, Lizard. Wait, why was he in No Way Home again? I don't know. 93, Carly Morgenthau. Oh man, I cannot stand this woman. She may be the most annoying villain on this entire list. All she did was complain and whine in every scene. She barely used her super strength, she wasn't intimidating, her story arc wasn't satisfying or moving, and every time she opened her mouth, I wanted to turn the show off. This is a great example of what Marvel needs to avoid in the future. She's just a fart in the wind. 92, Mummy Thing. What was this thing? This thing sucked. It could defeat multiple grown men with machine guns, but it couldn't beat a 5'6", 120-pound woman? What a loser. But hey, at least it wasn't unbearingly annoying. 91, Deaver. Man, Ms. Marvel had some shitty villains. 90, Tracksuit Mafia. These guys suck. I know they're supposed to be goofy and silly, but that's like saying, hey, dog shit is supposed to be stinky. Yeah, I know it's supposed to stink, but it still stinks. 89, Kazi. The leader of the Tracksuit Mafia gets his own spot on here, and this guy is a cardboard box. Nothing more. 88, Anton Mogert. Another cardboard box. Rest in peace to the actor. 87, Starforce. Who? 86, Sonny Birch. He's the definition of a generic businessman, and he adds nothing to the story and presents no threat to Ant-Man or the Wasp. He is Walton Goggins with a country accent once again, and I hate to even think about him. 85. Topaz. She's absolutely nothing. She's just there. 84. Brant. I know you're also thinking, oh yeah, her, I forgot she existed. 83. Kamran. He's only a villain for like 10 minutes, so yep. 82. Aolith. He's a big cloud. That's it. 81. The Other. This guy is a generic henchman who does literally nothing but talk and get his neck broken. And he has an extra thumb on each hand? Okay, that at least makes him more memorable than Aolith, so there you go. Number 80. Sandman. I'm not even sure if he technically counts as a villain, as he's kind of indifferent to everything, and he doesn't really do anything. He just wants to go home. So simply for the nostalgia, he gets this spot. 79. The Jackal. What a waste. A cool concept shrouded by darkness to hide the CGI. This thing shows up twice and gets destroyed both times very anticlimactically. I'm not sure why Arthur didn't summon more for the final battle, but whatever. We didn't miss much. 78. Shocker 1. What can I say about this guy? He punched Spider-Man once. 77. Curse. Curse is a boring gray monster with no discerning character traits or memorable moments. He is a nothing character. Fodder for Thor to punch. 76. Aisha. She is a gold woman with a British accent. That's it. She's not threatening and I don't care about her at all. 75. Valentina. This lady tries really hard to be Tony Stark, but it just doesn't work. She's just kind of there sometimes. Maybe she'll be fleshed out in Thunderbolts. 74. The Supreme Intelligence. What did this villain want? Why was she shooting a green beam at Captain Marvel? What was happening? I genuinely don't know. I mean, Annette Bening played her, so there's that. 73. Echo. She had a really promising introduction with the loss of her father, but she just goes downhill after that. The writing of Hawkeye does her no favors, as she basically has nothing to do for the entire show. She's just a boring character with dirt face. 72. Ravonna. She's like the last two, but just a little better. She's your typical straight-laced librarian type that doesn't want to break the rules, and she's so boring. Not even Owen Wilson can bring out the charm in her. 71. Baron von Strucker. He has one or two scenes of being a generic mustache-twirling villain, and then he gets killed by Ultron. He is a joke in every way, and nothing more than a plot device. Next, number 70. Laufey. He has a few lines, but he doesn't actually do anything. His design is really cool and he has a cool voice, but the first time he actually gets up to do anything in the movie, he gets demolished by Loki. Utterly forgettable. 69. Mummy Monster Thing. Just a fun monster that shows up for one scene. It wasn't great, but it did its job. At least it wasn't annoying or forgettable. 68. Amit. One of the more disappointing villains in the MCU. There was so much build up to basically nothing. She is defeated so quickly, and you don't get enough time with her to really establish her character. Her cool design is the only thing putting her this high. 67. Director Hayward. I'm hesitant to even put him on this list because he was absolutely in the right when he went after Wanda. Someone needed to stop that woman. I wanted him to put an end to her. She's dangerous, as we've now seen, and he was almost the unsung hero of the MCU. But he is very generic as an antagonist, so he gets this spot. 66. Eric Savin. This guy's another generic henchman, but he had a pretty decent fight scene with Iron Man in the airplane where Tony shoots him through the chest, and he can chew gum with the best of them. 65. Taserface. This guy is a joke, but he works well enough for the movie he's in. We got to see Rocket make fun of him, and he actually had a great moment when he and his crew were shooting guys out of the airlock and murdering them. But his shtick got tiring very quickly, and I'm glad he died in an explosion. 64. Zeus. Is he great? No. He's a combination of Mario and Nacho Libre, but I'd be lying if I said he wasn't entertaining to watch. Really, really stupid, but better than a lot of these losers. 63. Razor Fist. This guy has zero character depth, but hey, he has a freaking razor for a hand. Plus, he's responsible for that great bus fight scene in Shang-Chi, so there you go. 62. Arnim Zola. I mean, his only role was to be Red Skull's grunt and then a guy on a screen spouting out plot exposition. At least he's kind of interesting to look at. Maybe. Next. 61. Fenrir. Look, it's a giant CGI wolf who's in like 2 scenes, but he has a nice little fight with Hulk where he draws some blood, so at least he did something in his movie. Number 60. Cole Obsidian. He's a big monster guy who is there purely for a few action scenes. Nothing less, nothing more. He does his job, but we know nothing about him and we don't care about him. 59. Corvus Glaive. The same thing I said for Cole Obsidian applies here, except he actually has a few lines. He challenges Vision and Cap in combat, so I at least kind of remember him. Not great by any means, but he's not pure ass. 58. Jasper Sitwell. This guy is a classic punching bag. He gets thrown off a roof, thrown into traffic, kidnapped on a boat, he's constantly threatened, he has no power. I love it. Fuck this slimy twerp. 57. Korath. Now we're getting into the section of villains who aren't terrible piles of garbage, but they're not close to great. And Korath is just that. An average guy with 1 or 2 memorable moments. 56. Proxima Midnight. Visually, she looks the worst out of all the Black Order members, but she has some cool moments fighting Black Widow and Okoye, throwing her staff at Cap, and she does her job as a physical threat to the Avengers. She's just a hair above the other characters, so she's still not very good, just acceptable. 55. Shocker 2. This was such a disappointing villain because he could have been so much more than what he was. He's dressed like a plumber, he stands around taking orders from the Vulture, and he doesn't even become Shocker until the end of the movie where he has one short fight scene. Even though that one fight scene of him flipping the buses is pretty cool, and he has one line that I absolutely love.
I wasn't sure about this thing at first, but damn.
That's great. 54. Lucian. Yeah, I don't think this guy has any dialogue, but he almost kills Doctor Strange, and he gives us a really cool action scene where they're fighting in the astral plane in the operating room. So he did something. Forgettable? Yes. Useless? No. 53. Scourge. Oh man. Another disappointing side character that just takes orders from the main villain until they do one important thing in the end. I love Scourge's design, and I think Karl Urban does the best he can, but he literally does nothing for an hour and a half of Thor Ragnarok. Him pulling out some M16s and turning against Hela is the only thing that saves him from being further down on the list. He's basically interchangeable with the Shocker or Lucian. 52. Whiplash. They tried to give him some depth and backstory, but it just didn't work. Mickey Rourke with a Russian accent was weird, he's barely in the movie, and he is far outshined by the secondary villain. And the 2 action scenes that he does have only last about 6 minutes combined. Yeah, I counted. He does have a few memorable moments, so he's not absolute poo-poo. 51. Death Dealer. This guy's a lesser version of the Winter Soldier. Faceless dude from the main hero's past that has no dialogue, but has some really cool fight scenes. He has a cool costume, he had a cool fight, cool. Number 50. Agatha. Agatha kinda sucked. She's revealed to be an evil villain in the closing episodes of WandaVision, but she doesn't do anything. Her powers aren't interesting, she doesn't really challenge Wanda, and all she does is stand around and give exposition. Wow, what a great villain. The only reason that she isn't at the bottom of this list is because Catherine Hahn is good throughout the show. 49. He Who Remains. Is this guy even a villain? What is he? I'll tell you what. He's Jonathan Majors on cocaine. And he loves apples? I don't know. 48. Icarus. He's not terrible, he's not fantastic, he's not much of anything really. He's basically Superman, but with less personality, if that's possible. They try to make you care about his relationship with Cersei and him turning on his family, but he's just so boring. Richard Madden gets nothing to do but punch things, and then he's so sad in the end that he flies into the sun? Really subtle, guys. 47. Kingpin. Man, it was so good to see this bald-headed son of a bitch again. But don't even get me started on what they did to this man in the final episode of Hawkeye. He only gets this spot for what he did in the past, and what I know he can do. He honestly doesn't even deserve to be this high. Moving on. 46. The Collector. Is he even technically a villain? I know he is in the comics, but in the MCU, he just rips people off and collects stuff. He dies before he can really do anything dastardly. I know he has bad intentions with the Infinity Stones, but he doesn't really do anything evil. You know, except keeping life forms as his slaves and test subjects. Alright, that's pretty bad. 45. Raza. This dude is only in a few scenes, and he doesn't really make much of an impact on Iron Man's overall story, but that one scene in the cave where he threatens to kill Yinsen and tells Tony to finish the missile is more intimidating and builds more stakes than Kingpin or Icarus did in all of their screen time. Forgettable, yes. Terrible, no. I would have actually liked to have seen more of this guy. 44. Aldrich Killian. Okay, subjectively, this guy pisses me off to no end. But if I'm being objective, he's slightly better than Raza. Guy Pearce does a good job in the role, and the reveal of having a fake Mandarin is actually a very smart villain plan. But he's still so lame. He has 2 dragon tattoos on him for no reason, and he's jumping around, spitting fire. I didn't believe him as a threat for 1 second. I didn't care about his army of extremist soldiers, and he died like a little biatch. He's a centimeter better than Raza, but that's not saying much. 43. The Destroyer. This was the MCU's first cool villain. No character, no depth, just badass. And for that, he gets this spot. 42. Ghost. Ghost is an interesting villain. She has a really interesting power visually and thematically, and they really make you feel for her, like she has some sort of incurable disease. I do think she's quite forgettable and boring at moments because of the script, but she's not bad at all. They use her powers well enough, and there is some depth there. She's probably the best forgettable villain in the MCU, if that makes sense. 41. Yon-Rogg. Yon-Rogg? More like Yon-Rogg. Good lord, this guy was boring. I couldn't believe they wasted Jude Law in this boring, generic-ass role. He had a few cool moments, and he's not offensively bad, but man is he forgettable. He's like Sinestro, but without the charisma and character development. This one isn't necessarily bad, just terribly disappointing. Number 40. Gargantos. How did they manage to make a tentacle monster more interesting than the Kingpin? I don't know, but it's exactly as advertised. A big tentacle monster that serves its purpose and gives us one fun action sequence. Some of the CGI in this scene was pretty bad, but it forced Doctor Strange to use some really cool spells, so I like it. It had a really gnarly death. 39. Nebula. You know, I'm not huge on Nebula. I think Karen Gillan is so stiff, and her line delivery isn't the best, but she has a pretty cool story and her design is great. For the 2 movies that she's a villain, she works well enough, and she has some really good character development in Guardians Volume 2. But she's not really a great villain, she's not a great hero, and she's just not a great character to me. But she's okay. 38. Batroc. Okay, this guy isn't amazing, but he leads off Captain America the Winter Soldier with a bang. His fight with Steve is pretty cool, and he actually has some pretty decent screen presence. He really doesn't do anything in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but that doesn't affect his rank. Yeah, he's disposable, but that's exactly what he should be, and that's okay with me. 37. White Vision. He has a visually stunning costume, a few cool hand-to-hand fights, and the scene where he and Vision discussed the ship of Theseus was a really smart and interesting way to end a fight without punching, so he's not bad. 36. Dreykov. I didn't love this James Bond villain, but his performance was actually quite good. When he's yelling and spitting in Natasha's face, I really wanted her to kill that slimy piece of shit, and that's what a villain should do, make you hate them. 35. Surtur. This one is simple. He isn't deep, he isn't complex, but he has a sweet scene at the beginning of the movie and a sweet scene at the end of the movie. He looks cool, he sounds cool, he fights Thor while Led Zeppelin plays, and he destroys Asgard. At least this guy is slightly memorable. 34. Karl Mordo. See, Mordo is barely even a villain. He spends most of his screen time helping Doctor Strange, and he's only a villain for one post-credit scene and then one fight scene. He's pretty awesome in the first movie, but he hasn't done anything special as a villain. He finally turns, and we don't even get to see that version that they built up fight Doctor Strange. It's a different version that we don't know. So, while Chiwetel Ejiofor gives a great performance, he's nothing special yet. 33. Claw. Claw is weird. He's almost really good, but there's just something holding him back. He's really serious and dark in one moment, but unhinged at other points, so he comes off kind of goofy. Andy Serkis gives a really good performance, and he does have a handful of good moments, but he just didn't make enough of an impact in his 2 appearances to be great. Not a bad villain, but not quite outstanding. 32. Gore. His story is terrible. His writing is dreadful. But Christian Bale has a few shining moments that automatically vault him over some of these other suckers. The most disappointing villain in the MCU by far. Watch my Love and Thunder review if you want a longer dissertation on Gore's suckiness. 31. Crossbones. This guy is barely in the MCU, but he's pretty cool when he shows up. He was integral in both Captain America sequels, and his hand-to-hand combat is pretty great. This guy is very unlikable in a good way, and he's just cool. That's all I ask for, and that's what I got. I love watching Captain America kick his ass. Number 30. Caecilius. He looks cool. No, but really, he's kind of generic and isn't written very well, but he does the one thing that every villain should do: challenge the hero. When he's fighting Doctor Strange, he actually feels like a threat, like he could actually kill him. He's responsible for one of the coolest visual fights in the MCU, and he has a couple of nice moments. So even though he's kind of hollow, he fits perfectly in the flow of the story, and he's not that bad. 29. Secretary Ross. This mustached bastard is just good. He's just really good at being a dick. He's not extremely compelling or deep, but you understand where he's coming from in every movie, and he's great in every scene he's in. 28. Dormammu. Dormammu is as deep as a kiddie pool, but he just has that cool factor. He's not some sympathetic villain that you can understand. No, he's a straight up evil, power-hungry demon who wants to take over the multiverse. And it's nice to get that once in a while. His design is visually beautiful, and the sequence where he keeps killing Doctor Strange over and over again is fantastic. He wasn't in it for long, but he definitely made an impact. 27. Abomination. Another villain who is just a douche. A major douche. He wants to stop the Hulk, so he becomes the Hulk. It's pretty simple. Even though the CGI hasn't held up very well over the years, his fight with Hulk is still really great. It's dirty, it's violent, and it's pure comic book awesomeness. He was exactly what he needed to be, and I think that's just fine. 26. Electro. This is Jamie Foxx being Jamie Foxx, and that's not a terrible thing, since Jamie Foxx is entertaining. He's mostly jokey, but he has some really good moments with Spider-Man, and he's pretty cool in the final battle. His motivations aren't quite there for me, but he was entertaining enough. 25. Ronan. Okay, I don't get why everyone craps on Ronan. I think he's a fine villain. He has a good presence, his voice is loud and booming, he smashes a guy's head in with a hammer, he taunts Drax, he destroys the Nova Corps, he stands up to Thanos. Man, I don't think he's incredible, but he is a decent villain, and he was the best he could be in a movie with 5 main characters. This guy was actually pretty memorable and menacing, and he plays his role wonderfully. 24. Yellow Jacket. Another villain in the category of having the same exact powers as the hero, but they're bad. Yeah, he feels familiar, and he's not exactly an excellent villain, but he's pretty good. Corey Stoll is great in the role, and he has a certain energy about him the entire movie. I think he far exceeded the average script that he was working with and made the best of it. Plus, his costume is badass, and he has some really memorable fights with Ant-Man. He is the definition of a good, passable villain. 23. Ego. What can I say? It's Kurt Russell being Kurt Russell. I don't think he reaches the heights of excellence, but he has some great emotional moments with Peter, and he was pretty well written. His character kinda falls off in the final act and becomes too one-dimensional, but for almost every scene he's in, he's good. Although he is a disappointing villain because I think they wasted Kurt Russell on such an average role. He's just above average. 22. Ultron. Speaking of disappointing, we have this guy. But if we took away the name Ultron and look at him objectively, he's a pretty good villain. He is very quotable, he challenges the Avengers, he has charisma, and a really great voice performance by James Spader. Yes, he's not really like the Ultron from the comics, but if we look back without those expectations, I think he's okay. He has some cheesy lines and some really dumb moments, but he's not as bad as people make him out to be. 21. The Grand Master. Once again, this is just an actor in their comfort zone. This is Jeff Goldblum letting loose and being a weird alien freak. He's not deep, you don't feel for him, he's just deeply entertaining. He's very funny, helps the plot move along, and has one of my favorite lines in the entirety of the MCU.
You're officially pardoned from life.
Damn, I love that moment. I don't think he could carry a movie as its main villain, but he is perfect in the role he played. Well done, Goldblum. Well done. Number 20. Sinister Strange. Hey, he doesn't last long, but he leaves an impact. He fleshes out Steven's character by revealing that they had a sister who died, and by telling us the story of how he lied at Christine's wedding. You can really see how sad and lonely this version of Strange has become. And he provides us with one of my favorite fight scenes in the MCU with the musical battle. In one scene, he's cooler than most of the villains in this universe. 19. Ebony Maw. This slimy bastard is just fun to watch. His performance is great, he has memorable moments, and he has a certain condescending confidence that is just really entertaining to watch. Sadly, he's only in like 4 scenes, so he doesn't make as much of an impact on the overall story, and he is far outshined by Thanos. He's still pretty damn good though. 18. Doc Ock. Dude, Alfred Molina kills it once again as this character. The highway fight is fantastic. His interactions with other villains are great. And he has some really great dialogue. But the problem is, he's not a true villain for very long. He has the highway fight, then he's just being grumpy in Doctor Strange's cell and Happy's apartment for 45 minutes until he gets cured. I loved him when he was being bad, but it didn't last very long. And while I adore him in Spider-Man 2, I can only judge him for what he did in the MCU. So in good conscience, I can only rank him this high. 17. John Walker. This guy. This fucking guy. He's borderline great, but he's not quite there for me. There are a lot of deep themes and character moments with him that are compelling, but I don't think he got enough time to really develop those emotions like he could have. I love the story of him becoming the new Cap and not knowing how to handle it and seeing his downward spiral, but I think people are making him out to be a bit more complex than he actually is. I don't think these writers are quite deft enough to fully examine a former soldier with mental health issues. Wyatt Russell kind of becomes cartoonish at a point, and his acting is over the top, so he is held back from being truly great. But even still, he's a solid villain. 16. Helmut Zemo. Yes, I think you could have completely taken Zemo out of Civil War and it still would have worked wonderfully, but for what he was, I think he was really good. Daniel Bruhl is excellent and has some great character moments. He was the first villain, other than Ultron, who was created because of the actions of the Avengers. He made you see another side to all the fighting, and the end scene with him and Black Panther is beautiful. The execution of him in the plot was a bit clunky, but he's a good villain, and Bruhl can take the most generic dialogue and turn it into something great. He was completely wasted and turned into a meme in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so that bumps him down a few spots. 15. The Red Skull. Just a good old-fashioned Nazi. He's not relatable, he doesn't want to help people, he's not this tragic figure, he's just a German-speaking, power-hungry, ruthless bastard, and he contrasts Steve Rogers so well. Hugo Weaving does a really good job as him, and the prosthetics on his face are pretty damn good. He's quotable, he's fun to watch, and he's just a solid villain. He's not very deep or complex, but sometimes you just want to watch a classic 1980s action movie villain. That's what he is. 14. Alexander Pierce. This guy has a really good balance of feeling like he could be your nice grandpa, but also feeling like a shady government scumbag. Robert Redford just sells every scene he's in with his pure charisma and acting chops. He doesn't really do much other than walk around and talk, but he's just so menacing and convincing in every scene he's in. Whether he's threatening Steve, chumming it up with Nick Fury, or killing his housemaid, this guy is the perfect evil businessman pulling the strings. 13. Hela. Hela's just cool. That's it. Like the Red Skull, she's just pure evil and she relishes in it. Cate Blanchett lets loose in this role and it's really fun to watch. Her design is cool, her attitude is menacing, she has a great screen presence, and she actually feels like a real threat to Thor. She shatters Mjolnir with ease, she kills the Warriors 3, she slaughters the Asgardian army, she slices Thor's eyeball out, she's memorable, you fear her, and she is a classic badass comic book villain. 12. Obadiah Stane. Okay, this is the villain that started it all. Jeff Bridges is electric in this role. I could watch him and Tony talk about business jargon all day long because he is so good. He's like Tony's cool uncle, but he's also believable as a murdering piece of shit. And he has this suave intelligence to him. You believe he could take on Tony Stark. Other than when he becomes a cartoon villain in the final fight, he is excellent in every scene he's in. The dude absolutely nails it. I mean, they barely even had a script to go off of. So he basically created this character in a cave with a box of scraps. 11. Mysterio. Ah, man, another disappointing villain, but that doesn't mean he was bad. I just had very high expectations for him, and he wasn't quite as amazing as I hoped he would be. It really hurt his character that he's only a villain for half of the movie, but when he lets loose and reveals himself, Gyllenhaal is great. He's unhinged, he's maniacal, his suit and powers are cool, and the illusion scene is visually stunning, and one of my favorite sequences in the MCU. I think Gyllenhaal could have done a little more with the role, and I didn't like that he was really mad at Iron Man the entire time. But putting my nitpicks aside, he's a good villain. Not incredible, but like the last few, he's pretty damn good. Number 10. Vulture. I think this is the first borderline great villain on the list. Michael Keaton isn't exactly the most intimidating man, but he makes it work in Homecoming. You feel the struggle of a man who just wants to provide for his family. He's a father, he's a husband, so that makes him even more dangerous. But in classic Spider-Man fashion, they connect him directly to Peter Parker, and that scene in the car is really fantastic. His suit is great, he's pretty fleshed out, and he is almost a great villain. There are some problems with the script and filmmaking that hold him back, but he's still a top-notch MCU baddie. Number 9. Arthur Harrow. Here's a villain that started off really promising and fizzled out in the end. I loved the cult leader presence that Ethan Hawke had. He was a man of principle, a man of conviction, and he really believed in his cause. He had some good conversations with Mark, and I think he was really interesting until the final 2 episodes of Moon Knight. They focused on a fake version of him for too long, so it took away from developing the real Arthur any further. And his ending sucked. Like, absolutely sucked. But I liked him so much in the first 3 or 4 episodes that it kind of balances it out. Kind of like a scale. Eh? Number 8. Killmonger. Man, Killmonger is just really good. A fully realized and compelling villain. I think he has some cheesy lines and some clunky plot progression, but this guy is a joy to watch. You feel for him because of his upbringing, and you see where he's coming from, but the way he goes about it makes him an unlikable son of a bitch. He hates colonists and people in power, but he doesn't realize that he's actually becoming the thing that he hates. It's actually scary how much he mirrors a lot of people in today's society. But his fight scenes, the scars on his body, the way he uses people, the way he challenges Wakanda's perceptions, it's all very great. And the moment that T'Challa takes him up to see the Wakandan sunset for the first time is a beautiful and heartwarming moment. Number 7. Wanda. I'm so conflicted on Wanda because, on one hand, she's a really effective villain. She's like a demonic entity that actually feels unstoppable. She picks people off like a monster in a horror movie. She murders the Illuminati. She decimates Kamartaj. And she's actually really scary in some scenes. But at the same time, the basis of her being a villain doesn't work for me. I understand why she's doing it. She's a batshit crazy psycho who's been corrupted by the Darkhold. But every time it cut to a scene with her and her kids, I didn't care and I was actually bored. Her kids are fake, and they didn't do a good enough job establishing them in WandaVision to make me care. They try to make her empathetic throughout Multiverse of Madness, and it just didn't resonate with me. Either fully embrace the villainy, or fully embrace the empathy. I think the script was confused on how to use her, so she's half of a great villain and half of a confusing, messy villain. But her great moments are really great. Therefore, she gets this spot. Number 6. Loki. Loki. I don't like Loki as much as most people do, but I can't deny that he is a pretty great slimeball for his first few appearances. Tom Hiddleston has perfected that smooth-talking, silver-tongued demeanor, and he is a really fun character to watch. In Thor, he's just a boy who lives in the shadow of his brother, and all he wants is his father's love. And in the Avengers, he has so many great quotes, and he is undeniably magnetic. He's not really threatening, and you don't fear him like a true villain, but it somehow works. I don't like how a lot of the fan base has put him up on this pedestal as this amazing, sexy icon, but he is great. Not incredible, but really great. Please, after his 2nd season, let him die. Number 5. The Winter Soldier. This is the MCU's version of the Terminator. Yes, the Winter Soldier is a phenomenal villain. And not because he has this deep philosophy about life. It's not because we relate to him. He is just purely awesome. He's a force to be reckoned with. And every time he comes on the screen, you are worried for everyone around him. The sound design that accompanies him, his striking metal arm, the way he just tears through people like an emotionless killing machine. It's so great to watch. He absolutely destroys people, and his hand-to-hand fights with Steve are amazing. Plus, he has one of my favorite kills in all of the MCU. Yes! He is the definition of badass. And then they give him some emotional depth in the final act by revealing that he has been Bucky this whole time, and he's being brainwashed against his will to do all of this. He is cool, he is menacing, and he actually challenges Steve in both physical and mental ways. Great villain. Number 4, Wenwu. Yes, the Mandarin himself. Kind of. There's just something about Tony Leung's performance that really captured me. His nuanced facial acting, his tone of voice, his presence. He just commanded your attention when he was on screen, and having the 10 rings on his arms helped with that as well. He took on an entire army in the opening scene, and he annihilates the men that killed his wife, displaying his ruthlessness and love for his family. At the root of everything, his motivations are fueled by the love for his family. He's just a man who wants to get his wife back, and that puts him at odds with Shang-Chi. Their final confrontation was really impactful. For the most part, he has great dialogue, great action, he's intimidating, emotional, and he's hands down the best part of the Shang-Chi movie. Please find a way to bring him back. Number 3, Green Goblin. Woo, man, Willem Dafoe brought his A game once again. It's like he never stopped playing this character. He nails the demented facial expressions, the evil tone of voice, the sadistic laugh, everything. He is the first villain in the MCU to truly hurt Spider-Man, and their 2 action scenes together were brutal and very well done. I loved him, but like Doc Ock, he's not in the movie for very long. He's only the Goblin for 2 scenes, and while he was very impactful on the story, he wasn't a fully fleshed out villain that got scene after scene to shine. He was really a plot device used to kill Aunt May, and for that reason, he lands at number 3. If he was in the whole movie and really developed that relationship with Tom Holland, he might be number 1. I mean, he's that good. Number 2, Justin Hammer. Yeah, that's right, kiss my ass. Justin Hammer is a fantastic villain. This guy is dripping with personality and insecurity, and it's absolutely wonderful to watch. Sam Rockwell is fantastic as this insecure, smooth-talking, slimy, scheming salesman type guy. He lives in Tony Stark's shadow, and he's kind of the butt of the joke, but it's just so fun to watch. Every single scene he's in, he steals it. The scene where he is presenting all of the weapons to Rhodey is one of the best scenes in the MCU, and this guy deserves more screen time in the future. I love him, and he makes every character he's with better. The only argument against him is that he's not an actual threat to Tony, but I don't care. He's that entertaining. He truly is the Nirvana of comic book movie villains. Gone way too soon. And number 1. By process of elimination, you can probably guess who this is. My number 1 best villain in the MCU is Thanos. Is there any surprise here? There is nothing I can say about Thanos that hasn't already been said before. In one single appearance, he has already propelled himself to all-time great status. You don't necessarily feel for him, but you understand him. He's well written, he's layered, he's menacing, and he's the first MCU villain that you truly fear. You actually believe that he might kill any character at any point. He is the MCU's Darth Vader. He made hard decisions. He challenged the heroes. He beat Hulk's ass, killed Heimdall, killed Loki, killed Gamora, killed Vision, and wiped out half of all life in the universe. It seemed like he was almost unstoppable. The fight scene on Titan is so exciting and intense because you are seriously rooting for the heroes to get that damn glove off of that purple bastard. He's not perfect, and there are some very big logical fallacies in his plan, but he is iconic, he is sexy, and he is simply amazing. His appearance in Endgame was a joke, but Infinity War Thanos is hands down the best villain in all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and in my opinion, one of the best comic book movie villains ever. Whew! Woo! So there you go. Basically, every villain that has appeared in the MCU ranked from worst to best. Go ahead and comment which one of these I got wrong because I know what's gonna happen. This was just my personal opinion as an MCU fan, and I would love to see your list below in the comments. You don't have to do 50 or 75 of them, but give me your top 5 or 10. I would love to see it. This was extremely fun, and I hope you had fun as well. Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. And if you dislike my content, give me a dislike and call me an idiot. I probably deserve it. Alright guys, I hope you're staying safe out there, and until we meet again, peace out.